I got a couple of comments after the release of my GTX 950 review, and you guys chose the R7 360, so here it is. Let's begin with the looks of the card. By the way, I got the XFX version, and the double dissipation cooler looks really good, and I believe XFX has won me over from their previous plasticky gray looking coolers. Ugh. No copper as far as I can see, just two aluminum heat pipes and aluminum heatsink. And the PCB is smaller than the actual card itself. And there is a 6-pin power connector. And for the back I/O, we see 2 DVI ports, 1 display port, and 1 HDMI port. And a max of 6 displays with a DisplayPort hub. So this is AMD's 26nm process. There's PowerTune, the GCN architecture, Mantle, which I believe has already died, DirectX 12, OpenGL 4.5, and OpenCL support. And for the rest of the specs, let's just compare it to the GTX 950 I reviewed last time, with a small little graph I'll make after the video. They both have 2 GB of GDDR5 memory. They're both on a 128-bit bus. 768 stream processors versus 768 CUDA cores. Available for two-way crossfire, or in NVIDIA's case, SLI. AMD is moving to utilizing crossfire over the PCI Express lanes themselves. I don't know how effective it is, but apparently it works. Oh, I forgot to mention temperatures on this card. They got about 70 degrees, which is kind of hot, but not terrible, but still pretty hot. There is a 1050 MHz core clock with a 6000 MHz memory clock, and I can't find how many watts this thing pulls out, but it requires a 500 watt power supply unit minimum, and it recommends a 650 watt. For benchmarks, I'm trying different things to make my graphs better and easier to read and comprehend. So I'll only show minimums and averages and round up from the decimal place if I need to. Also, guys, tell me if you don't want minimums or if you want minimums and averages, because I could make it a little bit easier if I just put averages, but I also know minimums are also important. So, by the way, I'm playing on this card. I'm testing on this card overclocked, and the GTX 950 with 2 test benches instead of 3. The first one has an i5-4670K at 3.4 GHz stock, but it does turbo at 3.8 GHz with 16 GB of 1600 MHz RAM. Test bench 2 has a Pentium G3258 at 3.2 GHz as stock as well with 4 GB of 1600 MHz. Now on the graphs it says i3, but because I forgot to put P for Pentium, so they say i3, but it's the Pentium G3258. Stop trying to jump down. I tested our usual Shadow of Mordor, Bioshock Infinite, and Tomb Raider 2013. What are you doing, kitty? You do it. You do it. You do it. Oh, you're jumping. Oh, there you go. On Tomb Raider 2013 Ultimate settings, yes, Ultimate settings at 1080p, the 950 got 48 FPS average and 30 minimum, and the R7 360 got about 36 average, overclocked, and 34 stock. While on the second test bench, you could see about no FPS difference, maybe 1 FPS difference, but it might be inside a tiny margin of error. On Bioshock Infinite benchmark, Ultra with diffusion at 1080p, both benches got around the same for both cards. The cards, you could see again a big difference. And again, frame rates are playable on Ultra settings, but I don't know if they're too enjoyable. Shadow of Mordor 1080p, very high. The GTX 950 got 56, while the R7 360 got about 43 to 46. We're seeing here the 950 obviously crushes the 360. I mean, the card is $50 more, but for $120, this card is really good. I played at max settings on most games, except for Shadow of Mordor, and that's because of a VRAM issue. I kind of mentioned that last time, but because it only has 2 GB of VRAM, it strongly recommends, and it's right too, that you turn down the settings from Ultra to very high. So I'm getting at is with the 950, obviously you can play most games at max settings, the exception of Shadow of Mordor and these tests, but also those are very high-end games. The 360 isn't that bad though for $120 versus the $170 that the GTX 950 is. Now with the benchmarks, you could see the FPS was kind of low, but that was to be able to compare it to the 950, which is I'm sure what you guys might have wanted to see, but I like to do benchmarks that show the most optimal performance. So I realized that if you turn the settings down one extra notch, just So from ultra to very high, or from very high to high, if you did that, the FPS was very playable and enjoyable. The graphics, of course, didn't look much worse. It usually doesn't from very high to high, or from ultra to very high. Usually it's something really small, like in Tomb Raider's case, with ultimate settings to very high settings, or ultimate to ultra settings. The only difference is TresFX. And turn off TresFX, everything looks fine except the hair, which the hair looks really good with TresFX. But if you turn it off, your frame rates are a lot better. So in conclusion, this card, where is it? This card, XFX, you did a really good job with your cooler, but of course there are a couple flaws. The flaws being the performance, but it's $120, so that would be a pro, not a con. One con, I think, would be the noise. The noise level was terrible with this thing. Pro, you can overclock it and get like 3 or 4 more FPS. I mean, from 35 to 39, that's a big jump, but from like 40 to 44, there might not be too much difference, or like 54 to 58, there might be no difference. But something lower, like this card is getting an FPS, 3 or 4 FPS jump is pretty good. So I'd like to know in the comments, would you buy this card? Any other suggestions? Because I might be doing another review next, maybe, I don't know. So tell me what you would like to see, and I might also buy some more I might just do another build, you know. I know there are builds coming up. Stick around, leave a like if you thought this video it deserves it. I don't know, I put some time into my videos. If you like what I do, you might as well subscribe to see my video that comes next week, or if I skip a week again, hopefully I do not. But I want to see what you guys think I should do so I can go out, buy something or whatnot. Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.